And even our characters are trying to like figure out like, wait, is this really supernatural? Am I just losing my mind? Hey guys, it's Kristen, and today we are talking about the first season of the CW's Nancy Drew. I got a lot of great messages from you guys that you actually checked out the show after I did my pilot review and that you really enjoyed it. So while we've been in solo isolation time, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go back and watch Nancy Drew. The CW, I kind of learned, does a lot of interesting things with their TV shows. There's certain shows like Roswell, New Mexico, where they actually only have 13 episodes, so they were able to finish out their run before everything sort of got put on pause. And then there's other shows like Charmed and Nancy Drew that actually did not get to finish out their seasons, and they're kind of tackling them in different ways. So with Charmed, they're actually ending on episode 19, and they're going to finish out the season when they get into season 3. And with Nancy Drew, the way that the 18th episode ends, it sort of feels like a season finale anyway. So they decided, you know what, we're gonna just cut off the last 4 episodes, and we're gonna just end here, and we're going to pick up with the mystery going into season 2. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and drop it in the comments, and let's talk about Nancy Drew. Just a heads up, there will be spoilers, so you've been warned. So I have to admit, I actually got really addicted to this show. I had so much fun watching it. I am just a sucker for a mystery, and I think what's really fun about Nancy Drew is that they set it up so that we are introduced to all of these different characters. They really make us love all of them. They feel like a little family, and then you dive into these mysteries that are actually really personal and really connected to each and every one of them, especially to our main character Nancy Drew, played by newcomer Kennedy McMahon. We have the character of Nancy Drew, who is beloved, who is known all around the world, and we've aged her up. We are putting her in a new scenario. And what I think we know about the classic Nancy Drew as a story is that Nancy's solving all these mysteries, and none of them actually really have a supernatural element to them. It always ends up sort of being a little bit like Scooby-Doo, where it's like, oh, here's the real reveal of, oh, it's that guy, you know, or it's this regular human being who is the mastermind behind what's going on. And what I think is really awesome about this story in Nancy Drew is that they do have those elements as well, but they do add these supernatural moments that just add a whole nother level to the story and kind of raise the stakes even more. So there's like this dual storyline and this balance of we're following 2 mysteries, one that's more of like a human level story about the murder of Tiffany Hudson, and one that's more of like a supernatural town folklore story about Lucy Sable, the most famous sea queen, who they don't know exactly how she died. And I think that it's really cool to see that dynamic and that balance in the show. And even our characters are trying to like figure out like, wait, is this really supernatural? Am I just losing my mind? And it's like, nope, this is really supernatural. But why is Nancy being the one haunted by Lucy Sable? What is the connection there? Why are these specific characters going on this journey? I think from the very first episode of Nancy Drew, there's little hints of things to come. Like, for instance, there's an article about Nancy Drew and the hidden staircase. And later on in the season, we actually get to see that story come back up. We get to see flashbacks to what happened through this story's lens. And I thought that that was really interesting. There are some sort of, you know, kind of demon of the week episodes throughout this season, even though at the same time we're following these 2 overarching mysteries, which eventually leads to a whole other mystery around the Iglesia, which it looks like we're going to dive even further into in season 2. Which is really interesting because I think the town of Horseshoe Bay has a lot of mystery and mythology and a lot of history in it, but I really enjoy that this show gave us these 2 mysteries that seem unconnected, and then when it really comes down to it, everything is really connected, and that makes me wonder also, how is the Iglesia story that we're going to get into, how is that mystery going to connect back? Because based off of the season finale, it looks like there may be some connection to the Marvin family. When it comes to these characters, like I mentioned, they do feel like a family, and I think they did a really great job, even from the very first episode, of sort of introducing us to these people, giving us their motives, their flaws, the secrets about them that could maybe make them seem like suspects, and then showing us why these characters actually belong together, will help each other and support each other, and why they are such a strong team. And this show really does feel like an ensemble. You know, Nancy Drew is definitely the heart of the story. The mystery that's going on definitely centers around her, but I think that it's really nice that everyone has their moments, everyone has their own goals and things they're trying to achieve. Even romance-wise, I think they do a really great job of not giving these characters petty drama to deal with. For instance, we see the relationship between Nancy and Ned kind of fizzle out a little bit, and then over time throughout the season, very slowly, we start to see Ned and George George start to come together. And I think the way that they handled that relationship was done really, really well, because they didn't rush anything. They made these characters get to know each other first. It didn't feel cliche. And then we even get to see the struggles that they're dealing with, particularly George, in the struggles of being in a relationship with someone, because in the past she's been in problematic relationships where she's been a secret, where she's been put in positions that she shouldn't be put in. And I think that particularly in the finale of Nancy Drew, they really handled that very well, with George kind of finally understanding what really went on between her and the relationship that she previously had with Ryan and why that wasn't okay. In terms of the mysteries, they give us a lot of different elements. There are flashbacks to previous mysteries that Nancy dealt with. There's a whole episode kind of about an alternate reality. I think that they just really went there when it came to telling these mysteries and telling the story and giving us some really honestly scary moments and really emotional moments. We're dealing with otherworldly entities. We're dealing with ghosts. We're dealing with sea monsters. There were times when I was like, oh shoot, you know, the jump scares got me. There were times, especially when we finally start to piece together the real truth behind the mysteries of Lucy Sable and Tiffany Hudson and how they're connected, that just literally like made me cry. And Nancy Drew is a character that is all about truth. She's all about finding the answers and kind of doing the tough work that needs to be done no matter what. And I think we do see Nancy go on a journey this season that allows her to open up a little bit more, that allows her to rely on her friends, that allows her to trust people, and also, you know, make some shocking discoveries that maybe will also close her off a little bit, but definitely things that take her on a very compelling journey and that you want to know what's going to happen next. And one of the things that I really love about this show is that, you know, just like Nancy, you want to find out the truth. And once you think you've learned a little bit of the truth, it turns out, no, there's a whole nother level and another level on top of that and a whole nother level of reveals on top of that. And that makes it super exciting because it's like you think you know something and then there's just way more to it. Nancy ends up discovering Lucy's diary, which confirms the fact that she was planning to kill herself. The diary also reveals that Lucy wasn't really feeling very good lately. This whole time, Lucy was pregnant with a baby. Not just any baby, Ryan Hudson's baby. And Kate and Carson were on the cliff that night to try to help Lucy. They tried to talk her down from it. They grabbed the baby. Kate and Carson raised her as their own. That child is Nancy. That was a huge, huge shock. And I will admit, I actually did get spoiled for that for the season, but even still, to watch how they got to that moment and how they got to that reveal, I was still crying. I was like, why am I so emotional over this thing that I already knew was happening? You know, it's just the way that they handled it, they did it so well, and the layers upon layers of mystery finally being revealed was just wild. And the way that this season ends, even though it wasn't the intended original season finale, I think really bends up a lot of the story and kind of puts a little bow on it in a very satisfying way. But I think we can clearly see from the cliffhanger of this episode that the mystery is not over yet. We get to see each character sort of see a vision of how they would die, which I think hints at what the Iglesias will do if they don't pay the toll or if they don't figure out how to get out of this situation. So long story short, I'm very excited to see where we're going to go in Nancy Drew Season 2. Going through those layers upon layers upon layers of truths and mysteries and discovery to see what is really happening here. And I'm sure that there are so many more mysteries to dive into and explore. I think there's also just a lot of questions following this season, in addition to, you know, what is the truth behind the Iglesias and how do they connect to the Marvins, but how is the relationship going to progress between Nancy, Carson, and Ryan, you know, Nancy and these two dads that she in general has had a lot of difficulties with. What is going to happen with their relationships and will they be able to get better? Will we get to learn more about Nancy's connection to her birth mother, Lucy Sable, or to the woman that she thought was her mother, Kate? Earlier in the season, we also see another town tradition that results in George kicking over a blood bucket, which is bad luck, and basically teases her death. So will that premonition come true? I think there's going to be a lot more going on between Bess and the Marvin family. And I think Ace is a character that brings a really great, sweet energy to the story, and I would love to learn a little bit more about his hacking skills and what was he really looking for when he originally got caught that led him to sort of be wrapped up with the police. I just really enjoy the back and forth going on between these very human stories, the very supernatural elements, and I hope we get to dive into even more of that in Season 2, answer more questions, maybe even dive dive into some more of Nancy's past mysteries and kind of bring those back in a new way. I think this show was so much fun. Definitely a must watch, especially if you love mysteries and piecing all this stuff together. You will absolutely love it. If you guys like this one, you can check out more of my CW reviews right over here, and I will catch you in my next video. See ya!